Oh, wait a minute, I need a beer.
It's all about beer.
Like many others, I've always enjoyed a nice cold beer.
That is so good. It's different.
And although I wouldn't have admitted it to some of my serious beer drinking friends, I was never exactly sure about what made a good beer, well, a good beer.
The spruce every spring is awesome.
I always wondered where and how my beer came to be. I knew a little about the microbrew and cask ale communities, but my curiosity was more organic. I wanted to know about the people who actually brew the beer they drink. A friend introduced me to someone who could help me find the answers about the source of my beer. His name is Les White, and he is the president of the Free State Homebrew Club Guild. The guild is comprised of 14 smaller homebrew clubs in Maryland, and as president, Les acts as the liaison between the guild and the local homebrew community.
There are 10 clubs, averaging in size from 20 members to 75, 100 members.
Shortly after meeting Les, he invited me to participate in what someone in the homebrew community might refer to as a really big brew. Knowing little about beer, I assumed that a keg was a lot of beer. I was wrong. 9 kegs, or about 1,080 pints, is what Tom Davidson considers a lot of beer.
Gee, where do you start about me? I'm a miserable old man with lots of trouble. I have been brewing for 18 years. I'm an architectural draftsman. I'm into motorcycles and travel and partying and just having a good time with lots of people. So alcohol fits very well into that scene. So.
Tom Davidson is one of the best brewers I know. Knows a lot of little tricks and techniques. I would never think about brewing like the 140 gallons of beer that we brewed. I would never have thought about brewing that much beer without involving him.
He invited his brewing buddies over, transformed his driveway into a mini microbrew, and over the course of 13 hours successfully brewed a batch of Back River Brown Ale.
That's over 4 barrels of beer, and there's brew pubs that don't even brew that quantity of beer.
We have our wort, which is the extracted barley malt. We put our hops in and boil them for different amounts of time. We boil for about an hour for bitterness, about a half hour for flavor, a few minutes for aroma. We cool that down, put it into a fermenter, add the yeast and get some oxygen, air into that, and then it ferments out. After that, a couple weeks later, we bottle it up, and a couple weeks after that, we drink it.
Learning to brew from Tom was certainly informative, but I needed a little one-on-one instruction to really grasp the concept. Les suggested brewing with Melinda Bird.
What is the big deal? Well, it's the thrill of creating something that tastes awesome. It has history, like when I made my first Thomas Jefferson pumpkin ale. It was from a recipe from Thomas Jefferson. It was just cool to think that Thomas Jefferson was drinking the same beer that I'm drinking, and it's beautiful, it's colorful, it's fun to share with people. And
Melinda Bird has some fantastic beers from her. She likes to try different ingredients and really experiment with her beers. She's come up with some really phenomenal beers. Just a fantastic brewer.
what we're doing today is we're brewing a batch of India Pale Ale, IPA process. More grain.
Melinda, an environmental artist and avid brewer, taught me to brew from a kit. Using kits are easier than brewing from grain, and they include everything you'll need for a tasty batch of your favorite kind of beer.
So we don't want to get it boiling.
We began by boiling the water.
160 to 170, because that's the best temperature to see grains at. Tie off the bag.
We measured the grains into mesh bags that would allow the water to seep the sugars out of the grains.
Kind of bob it around like a tea bag, trying to get it completely full of water. probably all the water put in this tip.
Once the grains were steeped, we added the prepared malt from the kit. This combination of malt and water creates what's known as the wort.
It's not going to affect the bottom. Make it nice and swirl.
The wort needed to boil for 60 minutes, so while we waited, we enjoyed some of Melinda's previous homebrew batches. We also sanitized the fermenter.
Get the bucket ready, the fermenter.
Okay.
It's a iodine.
Sanitizing is essential to ensure the beer is pure of any naturally occurring yeasts or bacteria, which can alter the taste of the
I'm gonna
beer.
not fill it with water, but put maybe a couple gallons with a sanitizer in it and seal it and give it some shakes.
So now we're adding finishing hops?
Finishing hops will give it the aroma that makes it an IPA. I mean, strong hop aroma at the end. This is 1 ounce. And I'll probably dry hop it with another ounce in a week or so.
At the end of the boil, we place the pot with the wort in the sink to create a counterflow ice bath to cool the liquid. Once the wort was cool enough, we siphoned it into the sanitized fermenter and added the yeast.
We're siphoning out that, and I'm just letting air splash all over. Because this may make it a better beer, and the other one would be perfectly fine. But since I'm going to all the trouble to make a beer, here we go.
Ensuring that the airlock was tightly in place, we closed the lid and allowed the yeast to begin fermenting the beer.
Slow down, and then leave it for another couple of days.
2 weeks later, the IPA was ready to be bottled.
I wonder if I did enough.
Do you refrigerate these right away?
No, you have to let them stay at room temperature during that 10-day period because, that's all right, because the yeast won't act if it's cold, it'll just be dormant.
What a satisfying hobby.
Yeah.
Learning to brew was great, but the best part is tasting the fruit of your labor.
Yeah, on December 2nd, we have our Guild Holiday Party. It's an annual charity event. 130 people sampling homebrew, eating homemade food, and enjoying good time at Clipper City.
At the Guild Holiday Party, we enjoyed the Back River Brown Ale that we brewed at Tom's.
Damn fine job on both those beers. Not too bad.
Melinda belongs to a smaller homebrew club, the Midnight Homebrew League in Westminster, Maryland. The Christmas party at Melinda's house featured the IPA that we brewed.
It's good. It's young, but it's young. I like it. Hey, does anybody want to try Michelle's first beer?
Wait a minute. And what is it?
All right, is this going to show to your students now? All right, let's see. Let's see. Here we go. Deployed, pinky deployed.
I like that.
No, it's delicious.
Very tasty.
That is really good. My friends I've made through homebrewing, and there's a wide spectrum, but most of my local friends from my local club, we have very different views on other things in life, and they don't have the passion for nature that I have, for example. And political views are totally opposite, but and I don't think I would ever have gravitated to them as friends if we didn't brew. But there's something about talking with a beer in hand that kind of erases the boundaries, and it's a good thing because I've made some really good friends that I might not know otherwise.
I discovered that I really enjoyed the people that I met, that there's a huge dichotomy of personalities and incomes and just jobs. I've literally met rocket scientists and nuclear physicists who homebrew, and I've brewed with plumbers. So
If I wasn't involved in homebrewing, probably wouldn't be as outgoing as I am. Homebrewers put a few beers on and they're just ready to talk about anything.
One of my fondest memories is brewing at a friend's house where we were brewing out on a deck, and we would brew out on this deck fairly often, and it can be freezing cold, it can be pouring rain, and there's just such a camaraderie of 3 or 4 of us just gathered around a pot, and they all happen to be guys because all my brew friends are guys, and to be standing out in the snow and stirring a pot and coming up with their glasses all steamed and sampling different beers, it's something that's just, it's kind of weird and it's just fun. It's something that most people probably couldn't relate to, but it's sort of the camaraderie of the kettle. So.
It's very, very inclusive, and very, very rarely that I find somebody who's just completely unappealing that I don't really want to be around. So, and that's unusual for me. It's not most crowds that I get into. I don't find a lot in common with each and every crowd. So these guys are all, no matter what they do, they're all a bunch of good guys. So I've enjoyed my time in the club and the guild immensely.
So, it's a fun crowd to be around, and by being around a fun crowd and a boisterous crowd, it just brings out the best in people. So.
Just a matter of people trying it out and getting excited by it and getting some feedback and making some friends in the process, and there's no going back.